scared the daylights out of me.
Daylights, huh?
45 seconds for last step. Hopefully you can quicker, but
A rookie move?
I just
Don't pop ahead of time.
I just don't pop. Yeah, don't pop early. That's something I
No
struggle with.
premature popping.
Unfortunately, I often pop the can way too early when I do your guys' podcast.
Is that what you pop?
In fact, I think I'll pop early 3 out of 3 times if I do it this time.
You know, at some point, someone's going to be disappointed.
Oh, yeah. I think it would actually be more surprising if I did not deliver disappointment.
Yes, this is true.
You know,
True.
just because you become so accustomed to me not following the podcast rules.
Right.
So,
Well,
is it time?
guess who's back?
Back again. 3 for 3, baby.
Is he your
3-time
first
guest.
time? Yeah, your first 3-timer?
I think so. I mean, you guys would know better than me.
Yes, he is the first
I feel
three-time
proud
guest.
of that. Although
ready?
I guess the one with Brandon.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh,
No.
Spilling on me.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, does the one
that's
count
that
when you were
premature thing.
That's
again.
that pop we were talking about.
Yeah, that's that pop.
Does the one with Brandon count when you were silent for half of it?
Well, first of all, I was going to say, I don't know if technically
that's good. It is limey.
that counts as 2
It's limey.
podcasts.
They got that
because
correct.
It was a part 1 and 2.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
think
2 podcasts.
It's 2. Okay.
It's 2 because we filmed them on 2 different
It was
days.
2 separate days,
It wasn't
too,
like we
yeah.
just filmed a
That's
long
what
one
it
and cut it in
was.
half.
Yeah.
It was 2 different
Yeah.
ones.
I was
Which
present
one
for
was
some
this?
of it. Delta 9.
The Delta 9 and then
I
the
thought we were
sequel.
speaking of a person. Oh,
What?
I don't know.
Brianna's also
Can't get
here.
over how
Yeah.
bright it is in here.
I know, it's crazy.
Crazy.
Josh just got this
Did
great
you-
new, what did you call it, like a roll-up door?
Yeah, it's a commercial garage door, like you'd see in a restaurant or something.
Yeah, like a nice restaurant with like
Yeah.
a see-through glass, and
Yeah.
made the room look significantly bigger. We got a lot more light in here. It looks really, really nice. Yeah, not sure what it costs. You said you wanted to pay more than you wanted to pay, but whatever it was, I think it's worth it.
It was a lot. It was a lot. But the guys who were installing it, I got a deal on it, I guess, and the guys who were installing it told me it was like 40% off of what they normally charge. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that is a good deal. Because when
Yeah.
I first saw the price, I was like, how is this a good deal? Yeah. This is like ridiculously expensive.
When you told me how much, I was shocked how much it was. But then again, when you really look at number one, the labor that went into it, the guys putting it in, but also the amount of product, like you can see how it gets to that price.
Well, to give it context, and I don't want to give away how much it costs because the business gave me a deal on it, and I don't want to, put it out in the world. There, you can get this cheaper.
Right.
I can tell you we're almost done with my mom's house right next door here, and it was the exact same size garage door, and it was an opener in the track and everything, and it was the high end opener, the whole bit. This was 3 times as much, and there's no opener.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But again, it's, I assume that
you can't
commercial
put a price on that beauty.
No. It looks great.
When they
Or
finally
on this
put it up,
beauty.
I was just like, that looks so amazing. Okay. Like up until that point, I was just like, what are you doing, you idiot? This is so expensive. It's such a waste.
Yeah.
And then they put it up and wow.
Yeah.
That looks amazing.
I just love this dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's loving on you. She's pretty
She
shy.
lovey.
She's a
lovely
pretty shy
little
girl. We
ladies.
should introduce our friends James and Brianna. They flew up a little bomb trip into Spokane, Washington.
Spokane.
Come hang out up here, and what would you guys call it? A little bomb run trip, make some content, hang out.
Yeah. Josh came down, of course, to San Diego for Bow Disciples Challenge 3D shoot. And on that, I was like, yeah, we got to get up there. And we just jumped on it, got something pretty quick, came up, flew in on a Tuesday, out on a Friday. I think
Yeah.
I've already filmed like 5
We're
Vacation.
setting the record for the most content made in a 3-day period of time
It has to be.
with
dude.
the most people. Actually.
We talk about all the features. So, yeah, I'm going to, if everything gets finished, that's supposed to, we're going to have done a video with just us, one with Josh, one with Tim, one with Dan, I believe is happening, and one with Joel Turner.
Yeah, pretty amazing,
In
right?
like 3 days, and all unplanned, relatively,
Yeah. Well, the Tim one was planned, and it was whatever
Yeah.
we do. We didn't really make much
knew
of a
we were
schedule
doing
to
it.
it.
We
We knew
knew
we'd
we'd
make
do.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew we'd do the pod, but that's about all we had really planned, and it was just
Swing
like
that in
whatever
here,
happens.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
closer to me.
Yeah.
It's that
I
better?
think that one of
Closest
the
call. Touch.
I think one of the cool videos
this
we
good?
took. Oh my! Are we doing the Riley Reid scene here? Or Logan Paul.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You invite
There
James
we go.
places, you
Yeah,
know.
don't Google that name. Children.
No.
No, do not.
Yeah, we might have to
Yeah.
cut that clip.
No, we don't cut.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're just gonna look bad.
I don't know. Whatever.
But not quite as bad as sitting there silent for 30 minutes.
Yeah, this is the most prepared I've been for one of your guys' podcasts. I think. I actually feel
Which
quite.
I believe
which
that.
isn't saying much.
It's not. It's not. It's not saying much. It's entertaining.
I think of the videos we filmed, I think there's some that like I didn't expect to be anything, and then by the time we finished them, it was like that's actually pretty good video.
One video turned into 3 because we were so first disappointed and then amazed, and then well, we better do that again.
Yeah, and
Right.
I think we should talk about that because
Well, it'll probably be out by the time
this is out. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
that to break it down before I even explain the video, I don't think you or I, who've shot bows a lot, realized how similar they are if you erase any preconceived notion in your head.
I agree. Now
Crazy.
I really agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how would that change? Like, will that change at all your approach if someone comes in the shop and you say like they want to buy a bow? Does that change at all? Like your advice or pitch?
I do think the hard part of it is you do need to shoot the bow and be able to feel the grip, right? Because every grip's different, and you're gonna like one over another. So unfortunately, you can't eliminate it. I do think if somebody is like really stuck on something and you think that they're doing it in their head, you could do that. Say, here, why don't you try it this way? Well, the way we did it, blindfolded and with a glove on. You couldn't tell anything, like at all. Like and they all felt really similar when you pulled them back. It blew my mind. I was sweating it the whole time. I was like, I'm going to get all these wrong. Like every one of these is going to be wrong.
I thought the same thing.
I can't believe it. Like I can't tell. And until you eliminate being able to see what bow it is and being able to feel, kind of make out what bow it is before you draw it back, you wouldn't know it. Like it's bonkers.
It's insane.
So there is definitely some real valid input to that, and I think at the end of the day, the reality of it is they're all really close in feel. We pick it out. We nitpick it. We put a sharp stick to it, right? Trying to figure out which one's better. And if you weren't able to see it and weren't able to tell which one it is ahead of time, you might be completely wasting your time. Because if it's a good quality brand, there's not much difference. So then that gives more validity to the actual stats, right? Because we're all like, well, this bow feels so much better to me. Well, we couldn't get that right to save our ass. Like I think we both nailed one easily because it was noticeable, but outside of that, there were 8 different bows and only one of them was noticeably different. 7 of them were stupid similar. Like if you took away a couple of ways to tell which one you're shooting. So then the actual speed, the actual reflex geometry, and the actual physical weight, all of a sudden go, wow, these things are a lot more important than I was really giving them weight to. Because it always boiled down to which one really feels better to you. Well, that notion is in your head, I think.
Well,
what did you take away from? Because we both did the same thing, right?
I took away the same thing, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I was able to when we did the blind test with the glove, that's really the game changer is the glove, by the way. Right away, I was able to establish 3 of them that I was confident on. One, because the draw was significantly different than all the others. And then the one, I could tell just the back wall wasn't there like some of the other ones. And then one had a very firm back wall. Other than that, there's nothing. Like, which makes me realize that everything aside from, like you said, the stats is pretty much irrelevant to some case. Now, I do think that for me personally in my archery shooting, one thing that I need to be very consistent and good and I like a certain way is the grip and how it fits in my hand. So I think a good way to potentially pick a bow is to almost approach it, unless the draw is really bad. Like the draw cycle sucks or you're tearing your shoulder up or whatever, but outside of that, I almost feel like you should go entirely off of stats and what grip you can be the most repeatable with.
Yeah, you should almost ignore how they feel.
I think you should ignore the feel.
Because it's now, if you really hang on,
Somewhat.
if you really hang on to a bow, like if you're gonna do a bow for feel, fire it once, gripping the crap out of it.
Yeah, you
so
feel
you feel the vibration.
Yeah.
Because you can feel that, if that even matters.
And I would argue I don't think it does.
It doesn't.
You know?
But the reflection of vibration is usually correlated to noise. Like if a bow vibrates more, it's usually louder.
Yep.
So, and that is important,
That's very important.
right? So that's why I give credence to vibration.
Yep.
It's because it's so hard to hear it, but now we even have a way to hear it, like the tool because that'll be out, right?
So,
Okay. Yeah. The tool that Tim bought that we tried it he shot it like 5 times, and I said, "How much was that?" It's like, "Oh, I paid this for it." I went in my pocket and said, "Here, it's mine." You can use it all you want, but it's mine now because it actually truly measured a difference. And I didn't know it, but I think I told you, somebody in the comments pointed out how you measure decibels and what they mean.
Decibels is like logarithmic or whatever. So it's not 1 + 1 = 2. Every step gets significantly more than the last.
It's like double or something.
I think it's every 10 it doubles.
Every 10 it doubles.
I would have
Yes,
to look
that's
it
what it
up,
is.
but basically it's not.
That's what
it's
the
not a
comment
linear
said.
curve. It's got a swing to it.
Yeah, so if there's only 4
Yeah.
between, that's
like a
actually a
scale.
lot. That's
Yeah.
like a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
No,
So if you
I
can measure
do
it, that's
agree.
pretty sweet.
I definitely don't want to downplay sound. I think sound is important for sure. But like aside from, again, I really think
Yeah, throw some shit in there.
to your point, I think stats, we proved without a doubt that speed and if you can measure sound, if those 2 things are good and the grip is how you like, that's what you should shoot probably.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, the draw force curve or the cycle, right? Like I couldn't tell.
No.
Like I couldn't. And you hand me that bow when I can see it, I absolutely can tell.
Because
It's all learned.
It's learned.
yep.
Yeah.
It's learned in your head. It has to be because I was blown away.
Which is
Authentically blown away, and I think you'll be able to see that relatively well in the video because I'm like, I can't tell at all which one's which.
both of us
We're
look
both just like, what is
puzzled
going
every
on?
time. Yeah, and you know what, Josh, it's friggin' insane. I would always tell people when they would go to the bow shop and were shopping for a bow, whether they were new or what have you, I would always tell them, shoot all the bows and really feel them, find the one that feels best to you. Now, I think I'm like, that shit doesn't even matter. Really?
I think I kind of lean towards what you're saying, but also just deciding on what features are important to you. Because for some people, a short bow is important to them. You know, they want to swing it around a ground blind, or they
Sure.
have a short draw length, or
Sure.
some people, the nipple of destiny on a Hoyt is important because they want to set it on the ground without scuffing their cam or whatever. So there could be features that help differentiate your buying decision, but yeah, largely they're going to feel pretty similar. And I think the back wall thing is, to be honest, I think it's overrated because you can significantly change the feel of a back wall with a string. Like, there's a lot of ways to change that. When you throw on like a custom string that's got super tight strings, like it significantly changes the feel of the back wall. So if the back wall felt
Stiffer,
soft,
for sure.
you can change it quite a bit. And some bows have limb stop options, so you can change the feel of the back wall. Like some bows have the is a draw stop, like the Reckoning 36 has the ability to switch the draw stops
Yeah.
one way to the other to change the feel of the back wall. So you can definitely change the feel of the back wall, but
In some bows, but not all bows.
Yeah, not
some
all
bows
bows.
are built a particular way where you can't change it.
yeah, but the string could do something for you if it was soft. I guess you couldn't go from a firm back wall to a soft back wall, but most people are always, hey, they want,
Prefer firm.
yeah.
Most people do like it firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Firm's
mean,
always
I
better.
think harder's generally better just
And
because.
I
beds,
take your word for it.
Mattresses,
I would take your word for it. For sure.
pillows.
Well, you can create more tension.
back walls.
Which again, Brianna's gonna get. She's gonna prove to Mr. Shot IQ himself that she, pulls through shots better than anybody. Zero punching.
That's gonna be fun.
Oh, I think we all got to
I
stand
think
there.
he's just gonna shake his head and walk out the door. Like I can't help you. I'm a punch. What's funny is I don't really see the comments on my punching too much, and there are people who definitely point it out. But and I think it's because James has dramatized his command shooting with
Yeah.
this motorcycle thing now, so everybody comments on it. But realistically, he's got a much more balanced use of command and tension. Whereas I am just, there's no doubt about it in anybody's mind. If you watch me shoot, there's no 98%, there's no 99.9 or 88%. I'm 110%. I wouldn't even call it a command shooter. I am a puncher. There are times in videos where I'm like this, my thumb's down here, and you just see it go. It is horrendous.
Well, and when it goes off, your hand doesn't move at all. So you
No,
know
absolutely
it's
not.
coming.
Yep. And see, I didn't even these are things I just shot, and I've shot decently, and so it just never really bothered me. I was never trying to be a target shooter or anything, but you do want to be repeatable.
Yes.
And I've been averagely good for 10 years. But that's it. There's, to me, been no, I wouldn't call it improvement or vast improvement or anything.
Yeah, what does the next step look like or whatever?
Yeah. And so, sure, can I be good enough to make it within a, dessert-sized paper plate to harvest an animal? Yes. But can I sit there and shoot the X on a 3D target or a 300 round at 20 yards? Not repeattably.
I actually
not even
don't
close.
I don't think your 300 round was bad. I mean, I know
No,
we
it
didn't
wasn't
add
bad.
it
We'll
up,
have to
but-
add it up later. It's sitting in the shop. But that has a lot to, even when we were paper tuning today, and you were talking about a lot of that has to do with your variable here,
Yes.
not just, the arrow or the bow tuning. So
Yeah, if you're
know.
getting a different tear through paper with the same arrow every time you fire it, you're creating that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is a tool and it's a machine and it will duplicate if you don't get in the way.
Yep.
So anytime you see a little variance from the same one, like a little left, little right, that's in the way you're holding it, and the way you're holding it's changing.
Yep.
And that's where paper tuning is an incredible tool for practicing your grip. If you had a paper tuner set up at home, and you can shoot it from 10 feet, right? You don't need a shooting range. And just stand in front of the paper tuner and shoot arrows over and over and over. And you will realize what you're doing that's creating the difference and how to eliminate it.
yeah, I almost think that's even better than sure. Again, when we talked about when we were doing the 300 round, great way to kind of figure out, where if you're even off in the slightest in your sighting in. But if you were to paper tune instead at home, vice just shoot a 300 round in your living room or whatever, because then you're really focusing, not just let me get it down to here, let me get the arrow down to here. Now you're really focusing on, does my hole look perfect every time? Doesn't matter where you hit it, because you're trying to create repeatability, redundancy, and accuracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, hitting the middle of the target every time is the ability to duplicate what you're doing. Aiming and pointing is the easy part.
Yeah.
It's getting yourself to hold the bow the same every time. That's the hard part. And you would be way better served to spend way more time working on your form than shooting at a target.
Yeah, and I bet if you sat there working on that form just through shooting through a paper tune, you go back to that 300 round in your living room, and I
Tighten
bet
right
you
up.
it's going to look a whole lot different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And
Yeah.
it's just a balance thing too. If you looked at the pie of, how much time should I spend on each thing? Anytime you go spend all of your time doing one thing, you're pulling from the others. So a well-balanced pie has a little bit of everything, right? It's got a little bit of technique work, a little bit of what I would call block practice, where you're out just shooting arrows, maybe a little bit of mental work or whatever all those little slices of the pie are that add up to you shooting well. But yeah, definitely looking at it where am I missing things in that pie? And I think for a lot of people, I don't know if necessarily to say it's the humbleness thing is the right word, but they may not even be aware that their technique needs work. How they hold the bow needs work. Maybe their draw length is wrong. And if you're not getting it to a keen eye to help you observe it, then you got to kind of work through that yourself. Maybe that's via video or whatever.
And I think for a lot of people that, like you said, for whatever reason, that gets under people's skin.
Well, and it can be, you tell someone who's used to doing something that something should change or be different, it can be scary, especially if you're not used to working on your technique through maybe other avenues or things. And I see it all the time in golf, where you're at, your current level will take you to somewhere, right? What you do will take you to somewhere. That could be, say if we're talking archery, that could be into the 70s on a Vegas face, the 80s, the 90s. Maybe it's the 300s, and that's great. But at some point, you will plateau. And when you plateau, you then need to be able to look at the thing and say, hey, where do I need the work? What needs to be different? Is it my shot execution, my aiming, or whatever? And then be able to just differentiate that. Same thing happens in the gym, right? Like if you do the same thing for 6 months, you're going to hit a plateau at some point unless you change something, which could be your workout plan or your calories or your diet or whatever. And it's just being able to look at that from like an overarching perspective and not take it personally if something could be different. And not be afraid to suck for a little while before you get better, because often that's what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I think another thing I have noticed in any sport, really, and in archery as well, I think a lot of times people think they can spend money on products or whatever to make themselves shoot better. And I don't think that's the case generally.
Well, it's the easy answer, right?
Like, I think it's like people chase getting talent by I'll get better stuff. And the reality of it is, you go watch Bryson's YouTube, golf channel, like he'll smoke somebody with kids' clubs from Walmart.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's very good, by the way.
Yeah.
But he's that much better. I think in archery, it's the same stuff. Like you go shoot with an excellent target shooter, and
If Bodie was here with Joel, we could literally probably hand him one of those sticks off the shelf, and he
Bodie would probably smoke us with a Diamond 320. No problem.
Yeah.
And
But
so,
that's where, like Tim's saying, like the foundation in your technique comes into play. Sure, I will never criticize someone who does go buy something nicer, because to an extent, like it's those little things that those bows do have more technology in them, or any piece of, if it's golf equipment, you don't see a person going to the Masters or to the, what's the other thing? What's the thing we watched last night in Tin Cup?
U.S. Open.
Yes.
Oh, you guys watched Tin Cup?
Yeah.
They had never seen it.
Oh my gosh.
Good
So
movie.
I made like 3 references during your shoot yesterday, and they weren't getting them. I'm like,
That's
have you
so
not seen
good,
Tin
yeah.
Cup?
Yeah.
Like, no. Oh, we're watching that tonight.
What's your quick Rotten Tomatoes score for Tin Cup?
what did I give it last night? 7, 8?
No, you gave it an 8.2.
8.2. That's a strong score,
8.2 out
too.
of 10?
82%.
Yeah.
10, yeah. Come
Oh,
on.
82%.
82% on
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes.
How about
No-
you, Brianna?
no
Where are
toy.
you at? It's got the love story. That's compelling.
I know. Yeah.
It's got the humor.
I'm gonna go right there up with maybe 7.9 to 8.1, and the only reason I say that was like the question in the beginning. It moved very fast in the beginning to like the plot of the story.
Yeah.
That I was like, what's happening here? And it was all of a sudden he met her and he was in love with her, but I missed like, why was she there? Why was she there in the middle of the night to get lessons? Just the whole thing. And
Lack
then
of an
it caught up
explanation.
to you. But maybe again, that's the plot of the story, or the design of the storytelling.
The writing, yeah.
Yeah. But otherwise, a very good movie. The constant use of like metaphors or quotes, like the whole movie was basically a quote. His speech, like he had no original lines. I think basically all he talked in was quotes, which was hilarious.
It is
So
funny, yeah.
good, funny movie, and a little love story in there with it. Definitely both a little crazy, but who isn't? So
I didn't. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
she is waiting for a stick. You had a stick
she
in your
has a
hand,
stick.
Yeah, you
and
just
now
want to give it to her. Otherwise, she'll just stare at you. Yeah.
I'd give
she
it.
needs you to throw it.
I'd give it a higher
No,
score.
don't.
No, throw
Don't
it.
give it
No,
to
then
her.
she'll
That
start running,
creates
knocking over
the-
cameras and stuff.
So am I
so
giving
Yeah.
it to her or
Just give
not?
it to her.
Just
Just
give it
hand
to her.
it to
Just
her.
give it to her and let go.
Mia, come here.
Yeah.
Come here.
So I'd actually
go higher, huh?
I'd actually even go higher, and I'll tell you why. I'd probably give it like an 85, and out of 100. And I would give it that because it has all those things that you talked about in there, and it's very funny. And there's so many one-liners that are repeatable, jokey, which I always really appreciate in a movie. And I like a good comedy, and I do like a comedy to have a love story. I think that's nice in there, and it's it's something that'll appeal to a broader range of people. But that movie ends in a manner that should be bad,
Yes.
and it's perceived
Yeah.
as good.
That's
when,
true.
When they
Yeah.
give
That
you an
is true.
interesting movies that give you a twist at the end that you go, what? And then you still walk away from it as a good thing, right? I really like stuff like that. The movies that end in a fashion that you did not expect them to end in as you're getting to the climax of it.
So
I
true.
love that stuff.
Because
Well,
you
it's-
expect him to drain the shot on the last
I
hole.
expect him to win. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then he
I
doesn't.
expect him to
Well, and there's
overcome his shortcomings, and instead his shortcomings take him over, and he's still praised for it because he did accomplish his pigheadedness.
Well, and then I think it's even
it worked
bigger
out.
than that because, the whole premise you caught on to in the movie that he's in this low point just working at a driving range because this exact what happens at the end.
Yeah.
That exact incident happens, I guess, when he was playing in college or whatnot. And he let it just turn him downhill for the remainder of his life and until then. And then the exact same thing happens. He does get caught up in it.
Yeah.
But even though he lost, what happened years ago took him to, next to nothing, living in an RV at a next to nothing driving range.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't care. Like, the lesson was that, like, it didn't, like, his failure, he didn't let it bother him.
Right.
Like, yeah, he got praised, but the bigger, I think, message is it is actually, like, now thinking about it, like self-confidence or I don't know what the word for it would be.
Worth or whatever.
Self-worth. Like, he just didn't let the fact that he screwed up bring him down, even though everybody else, cheered him on.
Yeah.
He actually recognized himself for it and didn't let himself, what's the word when you say you're hard on yourself? He's hard on himself, and he chose not to be at the end, even though he failed.
It's very relatable. There's a lot of parallels.
There is. There is.
There's
And
something about that, like, neuroticness of, like, that person that's just very relatable,
Yeah.
Like, he's insecure. He's very insecure,
He
right?
is.
He needs Cheech there with him to be his guy.
And every time something's going wrong, Cheech is just babying the shit out of him. He's going, no, it's okay. You're doing great. This is a great spot. La, 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 la. I'm like, oh my God, he's so fragile.
That scene where they're like take the sexual overtones out and put in golf cues in. That was a good
so
one.
good.
The whole thing sounded like a strange love story between two men golfers, but it was just, a brotherly love, I guess. I don't know.
Definitely one of those movies. I feel like the more you watch it, the like quotables you see them coming, and you're
crazy.
like amped on it.
Yeah.
But to your point though about movies that end not necessarily at like the peak you expected.
Yeah.
Think about Avengers Endgame.
Right.
Was crazy,
Yeah.
and that's to me like one of the best done huge blockbuster movies.
I was so mad at the end of that.
and then
Because it
dude.
wasn't what you expected.
Not at all.
And and he was my favorite character.
And then they brought
Oh,
it
I
back
believe
so
that.
crazy in Infinity War too.
Right.
What's the Rotten Tomatoes on those? Those
I
are
haven't seen it.
No?
Those actually, no. Yeah.
oh,
You're
dude.
giving things
haven't
away
seen those?
over here.
Tim.
I don't remember
Have you
them,
watched
but I
any
have
of
seen
the
them.
superhero movies?
I don't really, nah.
The
No?
question
I
is,
would
Watch
just-
a little bit of the
they're
Batman
really
stuff.
good.
I
Like
would
Batman,
just
the
watch
Joker.
those two.
I would watch.
Dude, the Joker
The
stuff
Joker
is
is
insane.
incredibly good.
Joker's
yes,
insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I would watch. Iron Man, like the
Yeah.
original Iron Man.
I
'cause
might have
it's-
seen
it's-
that. Who's
it's
the star
great.
of that? What's his name?
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, I've seen. Maybe not all of it. Some of it. Yeah.
Okay, well, he's like up until the point of Endgame, he is like the main character in all of those shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's well, are you ever
now
gonna
I'm
watch it?
remembering.
What was
Are
that
you gonna
movie?
watch it?
What was that movie that you liked down in San Antonio?
What
Oh,
do we
Pulp
watch?
Fiction, right?
Pulp Fiction.
No, the one you were actually watching on TV when I probably went to bed.
Oh shit!
that was-
It was
were
kind
you
of a
watching
silent
Suicide
film.
Squad or
Sisu.
something?
Oh, Sisu.
Sisu, yeah.
Sisu.
Sisu.
Oh, that's
Sisu.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like John Wick in World War II with a Swedish guy.
It's kind of like a
It's
silent
awesome.
film.
Yeah,
almost.
there's almost no lines.
interesting.
When I
Or
watched
very
that
few
and I
lines.
was like, you were so into that, I'm like, dude, this is filmmaking, dude. This
It
is
is.
so good. Like, this is the stuff that I really enjoy about video is, telling stories, making people feel stuff. And like that's like very traditional. So what I recognized at that point was like you're like a very fan of like traditional film stuff.
I am. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much.
Which is like all that stuff you can learn from and adapt your style to how you make videos. Like every time I watch stuff like that, I see things. I'm like, oh, I love how they did that, or I love how they use that to make them feel that way, or plot twists and all that stuff. Like, yeah. There's so much to be learned from the past and the present of how those filmmakers do things. And obviously, we don't operate on the same budgets or whatever, but Yeah, it's just
there's a
interesting.
little
You don't,
bit
you
different
don't have a few
financial
billion,
model.
or is it hiding somewhere?
Yeah, but it doesn't take like. If you think that's what makes a great video, the movie is like that. You're missing the point. It's like you could literally do most of that stuff with just a redneck setup if you wanted.
You could.
You know, it takes creativity. It takes great writing. It takes like there are so many great stories that don't have big budgets. You know, it's just big budgets are another way to do it too.
For sure. I would suggest watching at least those two Avengers movie, the Infinity War
Infinity
and
War
Endgame.
and
Just
Endgame.
those two.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's hard to be heavily invested in Infinity War if you don't know the characters,
you
right?
gotta
Yeah,
know a
I see
couple.
And you'd
the
have
originals.
to have seen like the original Avengers to understand the significance of what's happening and where it's going.
Yeah.
Right. So you'd have to, if you really wanted to appreciate what's going on there, you'd have to invest 10 to 20 hours. You really would.
10
You
to
would.
20
You
hours.
would, because you'd have
There's
to
so many
watch. You'd have to
movies.
watch at least one of each of the movies of the characters that are in it, so you have some investment into the character, right? Because those two movies are all about the investment you have in that character, and that's
Correct,
what
yep.
that's what's really amazing and magical over time to me about movies where there's series.
That's
Or
why
no
you can't
different
go
than
watch
TV
the
show
last
series.
Harry Potter until
Yeah.
you've watched all the ones before.
That's right.
You know?
That's right, because you have to have an investment in the character to appreciate what's happening
Yeah.
and to feel what it should feel like in that
Yeah.
scenario.
Well, it's a long character. There's like long character arcs, you know.
Yeah,
as
well,
Yeah.
that's why TV shows are so hard that you liked when they end,
Well, and it's
as
so
opposed to a movie.
it's so
yeah.
interesting.
You ever notice that? Like how much more
course.
meaningful it is to you that it ended,
Oh,
Yeah.
or how much more emotionally invested you feel? It's because you spent so much time in investing yourself into this character. You feel like you know them. You feel like they're
Full
part of your
life
family,
story
Yeah.
for them.
and it's a life story, and then it's gone.
They're part of your life for a long time.
Yeah,
Oh, dude.
I've had several that like meant somewhat emotionally wrecked me. I'm an emotional person, like Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
When Ted Lasso ended, because there's not another season.
Yeah.
I don't
Like,
know
and that
what
was
that
only
is.
3 seasons.
Yeah.
But I don't know
I haven't
if
seen
I've,
the third season yet.
I don't know if I've ever been as emotionally invested in a TV character or felt like I could relate better to
Well, I mean,
than his character,
I've felt that of
than Sudeikis' character. In that.
with a few shows, and it's interesting because some shows you would think you feel that way. Like when Breaking Bad ended, I was like, and it was such a high peak at that
High peak.
time, like
Highest.
insane peak. But then the show, I felt like they did such a good job of ending it pretty well that like it didn't feel
It ended how you felt it should have.
like nothing was missing. But then again, like when a show like Dexter ended before they came out with the new one, I
Yeah.
was like, what happened here? Like, like
It
yeah.
was a weird ending, yeah.
kind
It
of
was.
weird. Have you guys seen the New Blood one?
No.
It's actually quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did enjoy Dexter.
But
It
even
was
that
good.
one kind of
Yeah.
ends like
Does-
well, it's more definitive.
It
but-
does mildly make you question your humanity when you're like rooting for a serial killer.
Yeah,
But
dude.
he's
They
murdering
really
bad
make
people.
you feel for
So
that
it's
serial
okay.
killer.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, but then the line starts getting real blurry there, and it's like, dude. I mean, it's one thing to have a code of ethics that you follow in that character, right? But it's you watch once again. You get so invested into it that you're kind of forgetting that they're a bad person, that the things they're doing are bad, even though it's like extreme. But after a season or two of it, you kind of get numb to it. It no longer looks extreme. I guess that's probably a lot like the people that get really into the homicide series or
Right.
murder shows
Yeah.
or things like that I never really cared to watch. But I think they just get numb to it, so the horrific
Good
part
murder
of it kind of gets
documentaries
Yeah.
are pretty
separate.
good.
Well,
Yeah,
females
they're-
tend to really like podcasts about true crime and shit like
Now,
that.
why is that?
I read
I
a
don't
study
understand
about it.
that. What
Yeah,
is
I
that?
read something about it. I can't quite remember the premise, but
Serial
it's
killers,
something about they
murderers,
want to.
rapists.
I wish I could remember, dude. But I read a thing. It was actually pretty compelling about like the psychology of why that is,
Yeah.
and I think it had to do with them.
Yeah, I would say it.
As
it
we're all
has
trying
to
to explain it, there's a woman right here who might be able to tell us.
I think
hey,
it's
shut
really
up
like
and let her talk.
the understanding of humans. Like I think inherently women are more people pleasers than men probably are. I'm not saying they're not, but like they want to understand or help. We're big fixers and things like that. And so like when you get invested into a serial killer, documentary, not the killer. You really want to understand how in the world like someone could go down this road.
How'd
Like
you
what
end up like
happened
this?
to them in life that morphed their brain into the ability to do this, or born like that, or whatever. You're just trying to understand humans, and I find it extremely intriguing. Like the Ted Bundy one, or no, which one was the most recent one? It wasn't-
Dahmer.
Dahmer.
That was a
Oh
wild
boy.
show.
Yeah.
Did you see that, Tim? Oh, my
Jesus.
goodness.
Yeah, I
Gives
saw
you a
that
whole
one.
new
Holy
perspective,
that
I
are-
feel like, on Dahmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's a documentary. You know it's real life. You know how absolutely heinous this human was, and
You had a 6-inch gap. A 6-inch gap there.
Yeah, no, you're definitely
but
not close
you
enough.
go through and you watch it. The sound's gonna sound horrible. It's gonna be like all over the place. But you go through and you start at the beginning when he's a child, and you just see the, things that if you were to see this, like I taught for 6 years to elementary schoolers before I joined the Navy, and you see these little kids with horrible parents, and you feel so bad. And you're like, man, you kind of understand.
I get how you got here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's like, it does not excuse your crimes whatsoever, you
No.
crazy person. But you feel bad at the time. Like, what if someone had stepped in and helped this child? What if someone had pulled them from the family? What if, dad got hit by a motorcycle or something and he didn't have his parents? But instead he became Dahmer,
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting about the Joker story too. Like, I'm curious to see what that next video is like. But usually I'm not super into dark stories like that. But man, that one was so well filmed and crazy story about a guy kind of like losing his marbles and what that looks like.
Kind of hard to believe that director was the director for Hangover and
Was it really?
Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, what's his
and
name?
Todd Phillips.
Yeah.
Tough
Yeah,
ups,
well, and the reality of it, I think, and we were talking about this earlier, is that the narrative shifted so woke that you couldn't make a good comedy anymore, like at all. Like Hollywood wouldn't accept him, and he was one of the best comedic directors. Period. So he had to shift into serious.
Well, that's like the two faces of the thing, right? Comedy and dark. Those
Yeah.
two faces or whatever.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
But I was talking about that series thing earlier. I wanted to just circle back to one thing. How you get invested in a series. Something, a little blurb I read talked about. It's like, no one would ever make a 10-hour film that we would sit down and watch. But there's this trend now where you can release a series on Netflix and someone will watch it in a day. Mm-hmm. So it's like this interesting flip of the script where we see some longer form stories through the version of, like a Netflix binge series. Like, have you guys seen Queen's Gambit?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
very good.
Dude, fantastic. Like, I was so bought into chess and
Amazing.
her story.
But it bummed me out that it was just the one mini series,
I loved
so
it.
you binge watch. See, I don't like it.
loved
I want to see the
I want
story
3 of
go
them.
on.
Four
Yeah,
of
like
them.
friggin'
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy. Heck yeah, keep it rolling. Season
47
19, baby,
seasons.
let's go. Like
Yeah.
you literally have watched them your entire life, pretty much. I just, once you're bought in and then it just ends, you're like, what happened for that? And then I'm on James, and I was like, get on Google if it's like a documentary on or a movie based on a true story or whatnot. I'm reading about what happened for the rest of their life and what did they go on to do? Did they die? Did they get divorced? Like, I want to know the rest, and you don't get it in the little mini series.
My dad
but-
does a version of that, and he always goes to look up if it's like someone new or interesting or I may never heard of them. He'll go to Google, what is their net worth? He's done it for like
that will tell me if it's good or
like
not.
he's
Send it
done
for
it
the
for like this.
paycheck.
He's just done it for like it's just like a curiosity thing, but he's done it for like these little discovery shows, like the people that live up in Alaska who'd be like, what's their net worth? This kind of a version of that.
Joker is insane.
It's insane.
It's insane.
It's
I
a
remember
crazy
I
story.
watched that in the theater. Relatively new when it came out.
That'd be a wild
it was
theater
packed
experience.
with people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I watched it with my brother, and I remember being so uncomfortable the whole time. Like the amount of tension and just how awkward he is and how well he portrays that like awkward like
Phenomenal
schizo
actor.
stuff. And I remember when the movie ended, I don't think there was a single noise one person made for like 15 minutes. People just sat there like nothing happening. It was just like, I gotta just sit here for a while and think about that.
Well, I think what they really nailed in that is that they managed to get the majority of people to see that and go, okay, I could see how that could get there, and how relatable to reality this is. You know, you see like movies like the Batman or whatnot, right? You go, yeah, you could do it, but yeah, it's fake. You watch that, and that felt like that was like Joker was a real person, and this is how he got to where he is. Like very much so.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we should probably navigate away from movies.
Yeah.
It's just like a half hour. There's going to be so many negative comments in this freaking thing.
The only last movie
I'm here
thing
for
is I am
Archery.
excited for Joker 2 with Lady
Yes.
Gaga. That's the last thing I'll say.
Yeah.
And it's a musical, which is like, I don't know how
Not
they're going to do
James's
that.
usual
but
favorite.
it's going to be sick.
They'll pull it
They'll
off.
figure it out.
They'll pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just shot indoor round, right? You haven't got to pound a ton of paper.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like, because I've taken such a fondness to shooting Vegas rounds, just as a check and balance. Like, hey, where am I at? And also as a diagnostic, because you can miss a shot and be like, oh, I missed a shot because I came out of my peep, or my grip felt off, or I came off my wall. So it's really helped me from a diagnostic perspective. But what'd you think about it?
I loved it. It was the first time I've ever done it indoors.
Isn't it a weird target to aim at?
I felt pretty comfortable aiming at it.
You did?
And I think I'll feel a lot better now that we have the 1.0 sight on there. But no, I felt great. And I know people probably say it all the time, but it's like I'll go prove it here shortly. The score I put up is I, without question, can do consistently at least 5 points better, just because I was rushing big time, and Josh saw me
on
bang
the
out.
end.
Yeah.
I did 3 rounds in like 5 minutes, so, and I dropped, I think, like 5 9s in the last 3.
Something like that.
It was a lot.
You dropped a lot in the last.
And
three.
it was, I was telling him, I'm not making excuses here. I just had to get it done. And a lot of those would like yank. But other than that, I felt really, really comfortable. And I text Brandon because he had always been like, I want to know what you would shoot on this. And he was like, did you get uncomfortable? He's like, I get uncomfortable when I like step up to the paper. And I was like, no, I don't know. It felt fine. Just put it in the middle and, pull it through, feel good about it. And I really am excited to do it again, especially because the new site and no time constraints.
Right.
Do you want to talk about your score at all?
I did 290.
Yeah.
So I dropped, what is that, 10 9s?
Yeah, that's a 9 per round average.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad.
Yeah.
It's good with a hunting bow setup.
Yeah, with a
Like,
hunting. I mean, you're shooting a hunting bow. You're shooting a shorter stabilizer. You're shooting a lightweight arrow, not a big diameter arrow. I mean, there's a lot of loss in points just because of that.
Yeah, hunting bow setup. Yeah, the diameter of the arrow definitely makes a big difference on picking up lines. But it's a very respectable score. Not that it matters really. It's just more like it's a measurable, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
maybe today you shoot 290, and then next year, it's a measurable, right? It just gives you an idea where you're at, and it's very static conditions, which is so different than 3D. 3D is so dynamic, right? Because you have the wind changing, the elevation, the footing. Yeah, the footing makes a big difference. All that stuff is always changing.
Yeah, and Brianna did it too. I think it was her first time doing it indoors, maybe, and
was.
I thought she did quite well.
Do you have any first impressions, Brianna?
So James knows he's definitely a more ADHD person than I am. But I think just doing it this one time, I have officially diagnosed that I will never be a target person. I am competitive by nature, but for whatever reason, shooting that like halfway through, just like, okay, this is fun, but let's move on.
Yeah. It takes a special type of personality to want to like sit there and pound paper all day.
If anything, I think what I get out of it that was competitive was like that learning, like you said, diagnosing, like, is my bow on or is it sighted in 110%? And you do learn that. That's if I were to do it, repeatedly, it would be when I need to re-sight in. Because you go outside and you sight in at 20 and whatever other pins you've got, and wind blows, and maybe you yank a shot and you're only shooting 2 or 3 at a time. You're like, oh, that looks like a decent group. Let's move to the next yardage. But when you're shooting 10 times or 20 yards, 10 times in a row, 3 arrows per, like you said, you will know.
You will know if your
I
sight's off
am
or not.
high right 3 inches. Like, there's no doubt about it. When it started, hitting the center, I'm like, I think I probably yanked that shot. Or what halfway through, I started holding the bottom left corner of the 9, the yellow, and that's where I was getting it to just kind of touch that bottom right corner of the 10. So you'll see some on each one of the 3 that
to get yourself a fair score, you got to know when you start that your pin is, if you make a good shot, it's in the X.
Correct. Yeah. So I like doing it for that sake of figuring that out. But I don't have the patience to sit there, or I don't know, maybe I've just learned I'm competitive with myself in only certain things. Like, my drive is hunting, and James knows it. Like, I want to go on all of these. I want to go black bear hunting. I want to go to Alaska. I want to go shoot axis in Hawaii. I want to go get antelopes at the top of the darn list, and James knows that I'm obsessed with it. Did I miss Idaho though? Yes, I did. I'm really upset about it. But that is my drive. So, like, I'm very competitive. James knows I used to get very angry with myself, and I'd bring the whole group down when we're out 3D shooting, because if I started shooting off, bad day bears for me. Everybody's mood would change because my mood changed, and I've gotten better at that. But I think I've just learned, like, that's where I'm competitive with myself in this sport. It's never going to be target shooting. So I have fun with it, and it doesn't bother me. I'm like, good enough. Like, if I got a 280 or 275, like, great. All of those would kill an animal. So, that was my long-winded take on my first attempt at it.
It was lengthy, but it was informative.
Yeah. It was. I think it was. I think I really covered a lot of details in it, and I think it was a good response.
Maybe the best ever, possibly.
But yeah, I mean, even if it's just a supplement, or even if you were to do it a couple times a year, it's just like, hey, you kind of have an idea of, here's where I'm at, here's where I'm going. Maybe I understand why I missed right, why I missed left. I just would encourage a person to try it,
I agree.
Straight up.
And you do them fairly often, right?
In the winter, I really did. I put a lot of time in from about October to, say, March or February. Shot a lot. I would stop here after work and shoot most days. And during the summer, I haven't done it too much, but I shot a paper round with the Ethos the other day, and just to shoot a paper round, because I haven't. I shot my best hunting bow score, which was 289.
That's great.
289 12X.
Awesome.
And that was my first Vegas round with the Ethos, and I dropped 3 on my first round, and then I just hit a real nice groove right there in the middle, and I finished really strong, which I was proud of, because I've had some good rounds go sour on me at the end, so I was able to break some really nice shots at the end, and that was great. So kind of lets me know things are trending the right direction,
For sure, yeah. And I think, close out on that topic. I think Brianna's right about and you said it, but, like, it's cool that you can visually see where all your shots land, because you can go, well, look, they're all an inch right.
And both of you could see both of your targets.
Mine was on the left side
Yours
of
on
the
the left side, and hers was high right, I think.
High right.
If I remember right. And you go, oh, I'm not actually sighted in.
So
I adjusted mid
and you were
the
compensating
shooting,
mid-shooting.
and I was compensating the wrong direction. So I actually,
you made it worse.
I was trying to think of, like, I don't know, my brain was seeing them disappear to the right, the lines. So I thought I was moving the sight to the right, but really I was sucking the sight in, so it was moving to the left. And so I was actually making myself a worse shooter mid that experience. But
it's all good.
Yeah, I was like, oh well,
try
it again another day.
We have all done that.
Now, for a couple San Diegans, San Diego. What was it like jumping in the old Spokane River?
My bad. Oh God.
Awesome. I liked it. I don't know. I thought it was refreshing. It was honestly not nearly as cold as I anticipated. It wasn't that bad. And Yeah, I like
We
it.
got
Brianna probably didn't like it so much.
Shit on the camera here. Yeah. No. I am not a cold weather person. I have grown up in Florida pretty much my whole life. I view myself as a cold-blooded lizard. I literally laid out here on the hot
She was.
ground for the next hour when we got back to reset my body temperature. So it was a fun experience.
Did you get any of that post cold shock endorphin stuff where you felt good?
I'd say the opposite. I came back and fell asleep for an hour.
Maybe you traumatized her a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe it just like, maybe in a way like relaxed my body. So I just like came back and crashed, which was quite nice. But it wasn't as, as cold. I'm a bit dramatic because I don't like cold, but it wasn't as cold as I expected. I got used to it, I think, a lot faster than I thought I was going to. But would I do them regularly? I don't think so.
Well, if it created a good physical stimuli for
Yeah.
you, then maybe, at that point it might be worthwhile. But I didn't enjoy it at all.
Yeah.
But I do know that it's beneficial for me physically, and it's one of those things that I should probably work myself into at some point.
Yeah, I know people say it, and I'm like, dang, I wish, And maybe you just got to suck it up and do it. You don't have to do it, every day. James tries and just cold plunges into the pool at night, especially in the wintertime. Like, he'll go from hot tub, cold plunge in the pool, come back, and he'll do it 3-4 times. So could I ever get to that level? Probably not. But could I maybe do it like if I lived in an area like this once a week or something? Yeah.
Sure.
It wasn't painful enough that I would be like, oh, hell no. But
What do we think of the big face-off you two have? This was highly anticipated.
Yeah, do you have any
high pressure?
Any little like post round reflections?
This is the highlight of the show right here. So
It is.
we saved it for the end.
post round reflections.
Yeah, I have one while you're stewing on it.
Yeah, go for it.
So I was hanging out talking with Joel, and I did a little bit of a slow start, which I've definitely been guilty of in other sports in the past, where I would like my determination to be better at the beginning than at the end. I almost like a little hole to climb out of. It's not necessarily a good thing, but sometimes, maybe I've done that to myself a little bit. But almost all of my shots were high right. Like 8 out of 10 were high right. So I should have just made a sight adjustment sooner. Should have made a sight adjustment sooner. Number 1, high right. Number 2, high right. Number 3, high right. Number 4, right. So, yeah, I just kind of talked through that with Joel, and I was like, yeah, I was high right quite a bit. And for that day, I mean, it's just easier to make that correction, right?
Yeah. I mean, like we mentioned, I think it was on target 3 or target 4 where you'd hit high right again.
Yeah.
Like, hey, pay super close attention to your peep sight.
Yeah.
Because you might be pulling out of it.
Yep.
And that's where the high right's coming from.
Yep.
Now,
So
what do you mean by
address that first.
pulling out of it?
All right, so when you anchor in with your bow, right, you draw back, you get your peep, you get your front housing, you line the two up, and then your brain typically switches to looking at the pins and then putting it on the target.
Yeah.
And then looking at the target and pulling through. As you go through that process, if your peep isn't in the perfect spot, you'll pull out of your peep a little bit to where it's not centered anymore. Right? It looks like it is at first, and then you start to drift out of it. And if you go back and look at it again, you'll realize you're slightly out of center. Keep moving.
Just
your head
just
back.
a consistent alignment
So,
of your
yeah.
peep to housing.
Yeah, so if
Gotcha.
it's just slightly out, it'll look right, it'll feel right, but then as you're sitting there holding and trying to point, your head will come up a little bit or up into the right a little bit to where it naturally wants to sit, and it still looks like you're in the peep, but you're not, but it'll make you hit like high right.
Interesting.
So yeah,
I don't know if I've ever
up and downs are almost always your peep sight. If your bow's tuned and you're not out of time, if you hit high or low, it's almost always coming out of your peep sight. Like you line it up, you go to aim, and then you're drifting out of it a little bit while you're aiming.
Interesting.
And
I
left and rights
never heard of that.
are almost always your grip. So if you're hitting left to right or struggling left to right, pay
Yeah.
attention to your grip. If you're
I've
hitting up
always
and down,
heard
pay
of like
attention to your peep.
if it's low and say you're a lefty, it's low and right, you probably dropped your. That's the one I always hear. You probably dropped your arm. You know,
Yeah.
if you're a righty and you're low left, you probably dropped your arm. So I'd never heard of. Yeah, I don't know.
That or
That's
your
just the one I
draw's
always
too
hear.
long.
Or your draw is
Yeah.
too long because you'll naturally pitch that
That's
way.
where you
Yeah.
fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the same thing with people with short draws. A lot of times they'll tend to miss high and like right for a right-hander.
Oh, and also, and this is something that just surfaces on me as an old habit that I'm aware of, but my lead shoulder will get high, and I'm aware of it. I'm conscious of it, but sometimes, and I think it has to do with drawing on uneven surfaces. Like I just don't orient my shoulder the right way, and when I do not suck my shoulder down, my float gets worse. It's noticeable. You can see it in camera when my bow's holding well or when it's not. And that's just something for me to continue to
You'll get a
work
shake
on.
going.
Yeah, but all in all, I mean, my last 4 shots, there was quite a bit of pressure because we were even Steven, and I broke off good shots.
And you had to work your way back to that too.
Yeah, and I had to work my way back to
It was
that.
a stressful
And, like,
situation that you were doing well through.
I watched the Sasquatch shot on the slow-mo real quick, and yeah, I made a good shot, good clean surprise break, and I can't be mad about that. And on that final arrow, I mean, honestly, where'd I hit? I hit 6 inches high and 2 inches right. And Brianna was 4 inches
was
high and
just
2 inches left.
Like 1 inch closer, you know?
Yeah.
You guys were
Yeah.
close, and Josh and I talked about it too. Like, and then you talked about more, but like I thought both of you shot really well, you know, because I've shot with both of you, and I think neither of you had a clunker. Like you both shot good, and it was competitive.
I would
Like,
say
you
my
know.
final 5 targets, I was very happy with how the shots broke. The first 5 targets, I think I'd maybe give myself like a C. But, you know, it's good. And honestly, a side benefit of doing that kind of thing that goes unnoticed unless you're in those situations is you're just continuing to practice under pressure, which, you know, the more often you do that, the more often you'll be able to perform under pressure. So it's not something I'm consciously trying to do. Like I'm not trying to be the best archer I can under pressure, but because I'm often put in those situations where I'm shooting on camera in these little challenges that, you know, you want to do a good job in, then you get these levels of pressure that you wouldn't otherwise, right? If you're just being a backyard hero, you don't feel that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was more pressure for me too, because even we had a supporting cast out there. Like
Yeah.
everyone was there to just hang out with us and watch us shoot. And it's like, we all know each other, but it's more eyes on you.
For sure, yeah.
know?
And even as a viewer, you know, when there's a contest going on or a wager, you know, even as the
Yeah.
person watching, you feel a little bit of that, you know, that pressure, that excitement, the what's
Yeah.
going to happen,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of almost in a different way. That's what's kind of cool about, you know, being a sports fan, going to a baseball game or something. It's like you don't
Yeah.
know the outcome.
No, you don't.
You know what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what you want, but you don't know the outcome,
And you
don't
can't
have
control
control
it.
over it.
None.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was very comparable. I would say, if I were to say like I was unhappy with, it would be like 3 out of my 7 shots. Realistically,
10 shots.
3 out of my 10 shots. I'm doing math as 7 plus 3 is 10. 3 out of 10. It was the Sasquatch in the beginning. Just absolutely farmed randomly. And that again, I think we'll get a lot of discussion about later this evening, but has a lot to do with my everything from here back. That is not redundant at all. The bear that I farmed high right. I was actually like 2 inches right of you as a 5.
And you could have got sucked into my air a little bit there. I don't know. I'm
yeah,
not saying you did, but
Yeah, I don't know. Because what happens for me is I do not, those real bad shots that are, you know, I'm talking, 8+ inches off, they never feel off for me when I let them go. But that's because I'm just commanding the shot.
Yeah.
So something is not right here that when I command, it's just vastly different than whatever normal
Sure.
is. And so those 3 I know are just, it's a habit I've picked up and I don't know what it is. And they're just super far off when I do whatever it is. And what was the third one was the 90-yarder, which, it's 90 yards for me
a
and
long
my
shot,
bow
yeah.
and slow and wind. Like, If I hit foam, normally I'm happy, but we had shot 90, right before that morning, and they were not that far, 2 feet off. So I was like, again, another one. What in the heck
Well, let's
happened?
talk about what you did well. I mean, that cougar shot,
Yes.
our 9th target.
Yeah,
You
straight into the sun.
Yeah,
Tough-
very
a
difficult
tough shot,
shot.
too.
Tough shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough shot.
You freaking hit the middle.
Just roped it.
The second shot of the day, you hit the middle. What was that? That little
the Wolverine.
the armadillo?
Wolverine.
Or was it a Wolverine?
Wolverine.
Yeah,
Wolverine,
the
not an
Wolverine. You
armadillo.
freaking smoked the middle. So you made some
Yeah.
good shots, and your bow was relatively steady. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I am very happy. That's it's the first thing I said when I got the Gen 3. I was extremely nervous about it. James knows it. I was going on for about the 5 months that it took them to get the bow here. That it's 28 inches. I've gone from a 32 to a 31 to 28. I was like, I don't know if this is going to be good. And got it, drew it back, and I was amazed at how much smoother and steadier. That's the first thing I told Bruce. I was like, it feels dead in front of me. Like 10 times the amount of pin movement is gone than I had with the Gen 2. So I was happy about that, especially when you showed me the slow-mo clip.
Yeah.
It was like,
You're steady.
yeah.
it's pretty steady. Yeah. So I think you're gonna get a chance to work with Joel. I think here shortly, which is cool. And there's aim and there's execution, right? There's like aim, there's execution, and then there's like mental game and strategy. You could bucket that into those things. So your aim is pretty dang solid. And so when you get the execution side of things,
Yeah. Well, I think there's something mentally that I'm
and execution and
doing up
mental can
here
be wrapped
that
together
causes,
too, right?
yeah, execution to be, I don't want to call it poor, just it's different than what is repeatable for me. And it's figuring out what that is and finding something that I can do that is repeatable. I don't know if I'll ever be a back tension shooter. Maybe it would be better for me. I think it would be a hard relearning process that I've tried on and off for the past 3 years and just can't get behind. So I'm very interested to see what Joel says watching it and talking through it. But there are improvements to be made. But overall, I think it was good. I stayed focused. It took James reminding me about every target to stay focused because I'm just as the movie said, grip it and rip it. For my shooting, it was good.
You're happy with it? Yeah.
I'm happy with it. If I farm 3 out of 10, that's overall a C, which is great. 3 out of 10. Did I say it right? Yeah. And it was fun, and I'm glad. I said this will be the last thing I say. I always shoot with James, and I have to remember as a competitive human that we are on vastly different playing fields. He's been shooting since he was 3 in diapers. I've been shooting for 10 years. They're just not gonna ever be the same. I can always get better, but there's also a level of, I think, nature and nurture, like just natural skill that people have at a certain
some people
thing.
have it.
Yeah,
right?
and that's this over here. A lot of it is constant practice and shooting and whatnot, and then half of that is just natural skill. And I am A-okay saying that my natural skill at archery is not like his natural skill at archery. So it was great to get to shoot with people, and I hope you don't take this in any way, shape, and form, but like that I could actually like compare and think with, like you've been shooting for a little while now. I took 2-3 years off in my 10 years of shooting. I've never given much into, like, you by far are better than me at actually going and practicing and looking at the analytics and trying out different things. I don't do that at all. So it's great to just sit down and not shoot with James. No.
Moral of the story is it's better to not shoot with James.
Yeah.
But,
I agree.
Yeah.
I appreciate the kind words, but no, it was fun because you guys are both good shooters who spend probably I don't know how many years, like you shot 5 or 6 years, so you probably shot a comparable amount of time.
With the
It's a
amount I
good
took
match.
off, yeah.
It's kind of 2 windows for me. I shot from ages like 12 to 18 as just a hunter in the Midwest, shooting 20 and 40 yards. But I did practice, and I took it seriously. And then maybe, say, 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, oh, I want to hunt out west really well. And to do that, you got to shoot really well. So, and, a lot of my friends were shooting more often. So having that community around me encouraged me to shoot more often. And then I kind of learned to enjoy it more on my own. It's like, hey, yeah, I do need to get good at this and take it more seriously. And it kind of made its way up the priority ladder, I guess would be a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been fun. But Joel Turner, we mentioned. Joel Turner is down at the shop,
We've been making him wait.
and these guys are going to go hang out with him. So there's been a bunch of really good content that'll come out of this weekend. We'll have everyone's platforms linked down below. James and Brianna from Bow Disciples.
Record amount of content.
Oh, dude. Yeah. You're going to have to subscribe to a lot of channels to catch all the stuff over the next.
That's right.
But, yeah.
That's right.
Anyways,
That's the idea.
thanks for having us, guys. It's always fun. Definitely going to come up here more. And it's so cool to see people using the range, like I was telling you, just constantly seeing people out shooting. That's what I like.
Yeah.
So it's really cool what you guys are cultivating.
I would
and doing.
I would say in like the last 5 years, I've seen this community around here grow and become much stronger. And I know at least when I first came here, like there were people that shot their bow often, but they were kind of quiet and kept to themselves. And it feels like there's a good environment of people now who are willing to help each other learn and grow. And iron sharpens iron.
That's
Right. And
Facts.
no need for secrets. Like archery doesn't need to be a mystery. We could talk about it. And
She's
Yeah.
so
Get
cute.
me out.
she
But
is so
yeah,
cute.
subscribe to the Josh and Tim podcast channel. Rate them 5 stars on Spotify and get the Jocko Go energy drink. The code is
Josh and Tim.
Josh and Tim. And
Save you some money.
if you need to save money on podiumarcher.com, use code Pump Station. Thank you very much. See you guys in the next one.
Bye.
See ya.
Classic.
You are such a